but sometimes he throws things at you for a reason. And the reason that I'm acquiring here is that it isn't how long it takes to get through it, but to get through it the way he wants us to get through it. I shortened this thing up a little bit, I thought, but when I went back to it, there was more to it than I thought there was. And the things that I wanted to shorten out of it were the key to the whole thing. Last week, we ended the first 29 books of Isaiah. That was quite a comprehensive tale contained in those books 1 through 29. That information, however, filled quite a few holes in the Revelation story, as we have been told it anyway. And the story will be completed by the two witnesses. And we who will be alive at the end of the age will then see the whole story. And I don't know how much more information I'm going to find in this book, but that final page will be told to the world by those two witnesses. But we finally figured out how the physical Judeans will be protected while the rest of the world will go through the wrath of Yahweh Elohim. And there is a difference in the wrath of Elohim and the tribulation. There is a difference. One reason why they will return in flesh is the first point that we will get into in part 10 of the book of Isaiah. This is the 10th part of the book of Isaiah here. It starts in Isaiah, the 30th chapter, the first verse. And it starts with the familiar theme. Woe to the rebellious ones, says Yahweh Elohim, who make advice, but not of me, and who cover with a covering, but not of my spirit. Note that. They're not spiritual yet, are they? He's making a distinction for them, another one to us also. Who make advice, but not of me, and who cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they add sin to sin. Those who set out to go down to Egypt and have not asked at my mouth, to take refuge in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. I am constantly amazed at the wording of this book. The shadow of Egypt. It isn't even real. It's just a shadow. You all claim it alls to be strength. I see it as a shadow. In the shadow of Egypt. Verse 3. Therefore the strength of Pharaoh shall be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt shall be your curse. For his rulers were at Zoan, and his ambassadors came to Hanes. They were all ashamed of a people who could not profit them. nor be a help nor a gain, but a shame and a reproach. That's the way they thought of you when you were coming to them as their all in all. There's an inequality in that relationship that will prove to be your undoing. Verse 6. The burden concerning the beasts of the south into the land of trouble and woe. The lioness and the lion are from them. The viper and the fiery flying serpent, they carry their riches on their shoulders, on young donkeys, and their treasures on the humps of camels, to a people that cannot profit. They're bringing all kinds of stuff to you, but you can't do anything with it. Verse 7. For Egypt helps vainly and worthlessly. So I have cried concerning this. Their strength is to sit still. Now, go write it before them in a tablet and note it in a book, so that it may be for the time to come forever and ever. Note that. That's kind of final. Verse 9. That this is a rebellious people, lying sons. They are sons who will not hear the law of Yahweh Elohim, who say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, do not prophesy to us right things. Speak to us, we've heard this so many times, smooth things. Prophesy falsehood. Go out of the way. Turn aside out of the path. Cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us. Therefore, so says the Holy One of Israel, because you have despised this word and trust in oppression and perverseness and rest on them, therefore this iniquity shall be to you as a branch, a breach, ready to fall, swelling out in a high wall, whose breaking comes suddenly in an instant. And he shall break it as the breaking of the potter's vessel that is broken in pieces. He shall have no pity, so that there shall be not be found in the breaking of it a shard, not a little piece, to take fire from the hearth, or to take water out of the pit. For so says the sovereign Yahweh Elohim, the Holy One of Israel, in return you shall be saved, and in quietness and hope shall be your strength. And you were not willing, but you said, no, for we will flee on a horse. Run from God on a horse? Therefore you shall flee. And you said, we will ride on the swift. Therefore those who pursue you shall be swift. 1,000 shall flee at the rebuke of one. At the rebuke of 5 you shall flee, until you are left as a pole on the top of a mountain, and as a sign on a hill. And so Yahweh Elohim waits to be gracious to you, and therefore he is exalted, that he may have mercy on you. For Yahweh is an Elohim of judgment. Blessed are all those who wait for him. He's still crying out to them. After all of this, still out crying out to them. I'm the one, follow me. 19. For the people shall dwell in Zion, at Jerusalem. You shall weep no more. He will be very gracious to you at the voice of your cry when he hears it. He will answer you. And Yahweh gives you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction. Yet your teachers shall not be removed into a corner anymore. Now this will be a little bit more familiar to you in a context that you will claim as what it is. And this is also in Isaiah, the 66th chapter, I think it is. I didn't write it down here, but that's where I think it is. Verse 21. No. Yet your teachers shall not be removed in a corner anymore, but your eyes shall see your teachers. 21. And your ears shall hear a word behind you, saying, this is the way, walk in it. When you turn to the right hand, and when you turn to the left, you'll hear this. 22. You shall also defile the covering of your graven images of silver, and the ornament of your molten images of gold. You shall cast them away like a menstruous cloth. I don't go any further than that. You ladies know what I'm talking about. You shall say to it, get away. Then he shall give the rain for your seed, with which you sow the ground, and the bread of the produce of the earth also shall be fat and plentiful. In that day, your cattle shall feed in large pastures, and the oxen and the young donkeys that plow the ground shall eat clean fodder, which has been winnowed with the shovel and with a fork. And there shall be on every high mountain and on every high hill rivers, streams of water, in the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall. Verse 26. And the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun. And the light of the sun shall be sevenfold. 7 times as bright as it is. As the light of 7 days, in the day that Yahweh binds up the break of his people and heals the stroke of their wound. Behold, the name of Yahweh comes from far, burning with his anger and uplifting of smoke. His lips are full of fury, and his tongue like a devouring fire, and like an overflowing stream. His breath shall reach to the middle of the neck, to sift the nations with the sieve of vanity. And a bridle will be in the jaws of the people, causing them to go astray. You shall have a song as in the keeping of a holy feast night, and gladness of heart. And when one goes with a flute to come into the mountain of Yahweh, to the mighty one of Israel. And Yahweh shall cause his glorious voice to be heard, and the bringing down of his arm, finally, shall be seen with raging anger and flame of a devouring fire, cloud burst and storm and hailstones. For through the voice of Yahweh, the Assyrian shall be beaten down, who struck with a rod. And in every place which the ordained staff shall pass, which Yahweh shall lay on him, it shall be with tambourines and harps, in battles of shaking. He will fight with them, for Tophet is ordained of old, yea, for the king it is prepared. He has made it deep and large. He makes great will with fire and wood. The breath of Yahweh kindles it like a torrent of brimstone. Go on to Isaiah, the 31st chapter, the first verse. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, and lean on horses and trust in chariots, because it is great, and in horsemen, because they are so very strong. So they do not look to the Holy One of Israel, nor do they seek Yahweh Elohim. Yet he also is wise, and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of evildoers, and against the help of those who work iniquity. And Egypt is a man, and not Elohim. And their horses are flesh, and not spirit. When Yahweh shall stretch out his hand, both he who helps shall fall, and he who is helped shall fall down. And they shall all cease together. For so has Yahweh spoken to me, as the lion roars, even the young lion on his prey. When a multitude of shepherds are gathered against him, he will not be afraid of their voice, nor fret himself because of their noise. So Yahweh of hosts shall come down to fight for what? Mount Zion, the highest place on the earth at the time. And on its hill, one hill. Verse 5, as birds flying, so Yahweh of hosts will defend Jerusalem. Also defending, he will deliver it, and passing over it, he will preserve it. Turn to him, from whom the sons of Israel have deeply revolted. For in that day, there it is again, every man shall cast away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which your hands have made for you a sin. Then Assyria shall fall with the sword, not of great men, and the sword not of lowly men shall devour him. For he shall flee from the sword, and his young men shall become forced labor. These are the people that were supposed to rescue you. You're now their slaves. And he shall pass over to his stronghold for fear, and his rulers shall be afraid of the banner, says Yahweh Elohim, whose fire is in Zion, and his furnace in Jerusalem. Go on to Isaiah, the 32nd chapter, the first verse. Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and rulers shall rule in judgment. And a man shall be as a hiding place from the wind, and a shelter from the tempest, like streams of water in a dry place, like the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. And the eyes of those who shall see shall not be dim, and the ears of those who hear shall listen. That's different. And the heart of the rash shall understand knowledge, and the tongue of those who stutter shall be ready to speak plainly. The fool shall no more be called noble, as they are in this world, nor the miser said to be bountiful. For the fool will speak folly, and his heart work iniquity, to practice hypocrisy, and to speak error against Yahweh, to make the soul of the hungry empty, and he will take away the drink of the thirsty. Also the weapons of the fool are evil. He thinks of wicked ways to destroy the poor with lying words. Even when the needy speaks right, even in the times when they speak right, it still destroys the poor. How many times in your lifetime do you pay for your house? Average 35 times what the house is worth. That's stealing. That's stealing. And the whole system now is all about credit. The lower your credit score, the more you pay for things. That's stealing. But I'm going off the page a little bit. Puppies do that. Verse 8. But the noble thinks noble things, and by noble things he shall stand in the time to come. Verse 9. Rise up, women who are at ease. Hear my voice. Careless daughters, listen to my speech. Many days and years you shall be troubled, careless women. For the vintage shall fail. The gathering shall not come. Tremble, women at ease. He troubled, careless ones. Strip yourselves and make yourselves bare, and bind sackcloth on your loins. They shall mourn for the breasts, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. On the land of my people shall come up thorns and briars. Yea, on all the houses of joy in the joyous city. That's a joyous city? Yet, not yet. Verse 14. Because the palace shall be deserted, the multitude of the city shall be forsaken. Instead, the mound and tower shall be for dens forever, a joy of wild donkeys, a pasture of flocks, until the Spirit is poured on us from on high. That's the event that what they wait for. And the wilderness becomes a fruitful field. And the fruitful field is thought to be a forest. Verse 16. Then judgment shall dwell in the wilderness, and righteousness remain in the fruitful field. And the work of righteousness shall be peace. And the service of righteousness shall be quietness and hope. For how long? Forever. "18. And my people shall dwell in a peaceful home, a peaceable home, and in secure dwellings, and quiet resting places. Though it hails, when the forest is felled and the city laid low. Blessed are you who sow beside all waters, who send out the feet of the ox and the donkey." In the previous chapters, Yahweh Elohim assured that the Assyrians would be judged and Judah would be delivered. But Elohim didn't want only to remove the threat. He also wanted to bless Judah, who was a righteous king. So the promise is made, "Behold, a king will reign in righteousness." However, it is likely that the prophecy of Isaiah 32 and 33 was given before the time of the prophecy of Isaiah 30 and 31. The most of the book is not written in any event-specific order. That is why most of the confusion arises about these verses. That is why so many either discount it or go off on their own ideas once they come up on something that doesn't fit what they already believe. Both passages look to the time of the Assyrian invasion of Judah. But Isaiah 30 and 31 is set in the time of Hezekiah. As the invasion nears Jerusalem, most commentators believe that the king who will reign in righteousness mentioned here was Hezekiah. And since it says that he will reign, the prophecy may have been given at the beginning of Isaiah's prophetic career, during the reign of King Ahaz, the predecessor to King Hezekiah. It is possible that the prophecy of Isaiah 32 and 33 was given during the reign of Hezekiah. And this announcement refers to the latter part of his reign. It is also possible that it was given during the time of Hezekiah, and it prophesies the coming of King Josiah, the great grandson of the present king of Judah, Hezekiah, who reigned during the Assyrian threat. Josiah was a righteous king. We'll find this in 2 Kings, the 22nd chapter, the 2nd verse. And he did right in the sight of Yahweh, and walked in all the ways of David his father, and did not turn aside to the right or the left. Hezekiah certainly fulfills the prophecy that a king will reign in righteousness. It is written of him. And he did what was right in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that his father David had done. He trusted in the Yahweh Elohim of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor anyone who was before him. For he held fast to Yahweh Elohim. He did not depart from him, from following him, but kept his commandments, which Elohim had commanded Moses. We'll see this in 2 Kings, the 18th chapter, the 13th verse. Make that 2 Kings, the 18th chapter, the 3rd verse. And he did the right in the sight of Yahweh Elohim, according to all that David his father did. Continue in 2 Kings, the 18th chapter, the 5th verse. He trusted in Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, and after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor who were before him. For he clung to Yahweh. He did not depart from following him, but kept his commandments, which Yahweh commanded Moses. A king will reign in righteousness. Ultimately, Hezekiah is a picture of the King of Kings. Who? That places the time period right there. Ultimately, Hezekiah is a picture of the King of Kings, Yahshua Messiah. Find this in Jeremiah, the 23rd verse, 23rd chapter, the 5th verse. Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter, the 5th verse. Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will raise to David a righteous branch. Who's the branch? Not Hezekiah, is it? A righteous branch. And the king shall reign and act wisely, and shall do judgment and justice in the earth. What king does justice down here now? That kind of points you who this is.
That's right.
And in his day, Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name by which he will be called, Yahweh, our righteousness. Verse 7. Therefore, behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that they shall no more say, Yahweh lives, who brought the sons of Israel up out of the land of Egypt. But Yahweh lives, who brought up and led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from countries where I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. Who announces this about our Messiah? Behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh Elohim, that I will raise to David a branch of righteousness. A king shall reign and prosper and execute judgment and righteousness in the earth. This seems to have been delivered in the time of Ahaz. And to speak of Hezekiah and of the righteousness and happy government, but withal, as Hezekiah and his reign was an eminent type of Messiah, or Yeshua Messiah, or Christ, and of his kingdom. So this prophecy looks through Hezekiah onto Messiah Yeshua. And princes will rule with justice. It wasn't enough. It is never enough to have a righteous king. The king must have helpers and princes under him who also rule with justice. Hezekiah had such loyal princes, loyal princes, such as Eliakim, Shebna the scribe, the elders of the high priests. Would have been better had Isaiah been there as another role other than prophet. These weren't princes in the literal sense of being sons of King Hezekiah. The Hebrew word for princes can mean any ruler under a king. H4475, Memsalah, realm or ruler. Any person appointed by a king under that king's rule or dominion or power. 2 Kings, the 19th chapter, the 2nd verse. And now you'll see what I was laughing about. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests, covered with sackcloth. What's that mean? They were doing something wrong. Everything they were doing was wrong and went against their ruler. Covered with sackcloth. To Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos. And they said to him, so says Hezekiah, this is a day of trouble and of rebuke and contempt. For the sons have come to the birth, and there is no strength to bring forth. It may be Yahweh or Elohim will hear all these words of the chief cupbearer with which his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to reproach the living Elohim, and will rebuke the words which Yahweh your Elohim has heard. And you shall lift up prayer for the rest who are left. And the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said to them, you shall say to your master, so says Yahweh Elohim, do not be afraid of the words which you have heard. with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast on him, and he shall hear a rumor, and shall return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. If Hezekiah, the righteous king, points to Yeshua Messiah, then who are Yeshua's princes? Good question. His people are his princes. But you are well, I'll spell it out for you in the Bible. Don't believe it from me. Turn to 1 Peter, the 2nd chapter, the 9th verse. Don't hear it from me. Hear it from him. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own people, special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. You who then were not a people at all, but now the people of Elohim, those not pitied, but now pitied or praised in a more modern phrase, and have made us kings and priests to our Elohim, and we shall reign on the earth. Revelation, the 5th chapter, the 10th verse. And you made us kings and priests to our Elohim, and we will reign over the earth. Many of these seemingly unnecessary trials and pains of this life have a wonderful purpose in the world beyond, training us to be princes, faithfully ruling with King Yeshua. Any questions?
What was the last reference in Revelation again? Revelation
5:10.
5:10. Okay, thank you.
That whole sequence was the things that are going to happen with Israel in the millennium. They are physical at that point, not spirit.
I did have a comment on. Okay, so in Revelation, Isaiah 31, we're dealing with in verses 8 and 9 that Assyria, I guess, is going to be judged. Well, if you go to Isaiah 19, Isaiah 19, and the 18 to 25, in verse 25 it says, whom Yahweh of hosts shall bless, saying, blessed is Egypt my people, and Assyria the work of my hands, and Israel my inheritance. So I guess ultimately they're going to be amongst Yahweh's people, correct? Or one of his people, right?
The ones that follow him.
Oh, okay.
That's the whole thing right there. Everybody doesn't follow. Once they get power, you can do it for yourself. Then now I can't, I'll follow you anymore. And those are the ones that you remember, that the ones that were squashed.
Okay. I'm glad. Thank you, Pastor.
Squash like bugs. Kings 19:7. Behold, I will send a blast on him, and he shall hear a rumor, and shall return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. Any others? Any comments or anything? Thurman.
I've always liked Isaiah 30 and verse 20. And I'm sorry. Thanks, David. Yeah, I've always liked Isaiah 30 and verse 20, where it says, and though the Lord gives you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet your teachers will not be moved into a corner anymore, but your eyes shall see your teachers. So like nowadays, they are so repelled against the truth, they like persecuting the ones trying to teach them the truth. But that's not going to be in that day, because they won't be able to just, push them away and ignore them and stuff.
Yep. Some of those teachers are going to be us too. A lot of this stuff is so convoluted in the commentaries that you pretty much are lost when you get there. And to stay there long, you go be more lost. And you've got to stay with the book. Even if you're going to hold on by your fingertips sometimes with this stuff, because there is very little stuff out here that gets into the deep stuff in each of these books, verse by verse. And even in that stuff, a lot of it is a little iffy. I know now why so many people give up on it after a while and go back into stuff where they can make a lot of money while they do it. This is not hard. This is not easy stuff to go through. But all the answers are there. But you have to wait until you get them from him. And the one thing I have learned through all this is that last piece of the puzzle will only be given through those two witnesses in Jerusalem in the end time. And what they will say will put everything else in place for you here. And anybody that says anything other than that, you listen to them if you want to, but you'll be out in the desert somewhere waiting for him to come from the west. Sure.
That's just your comment. It reminded me of when it says, don't believe everything you hear. They'll say, he's here, and Christ is over there, and Christ is here. He says, but don't listen to them. For there will say Christ is many places. Hear my voice in the time of this should happen. For many will say, look, there's Christ, let's go over here. Oh, let's look over here. Let's go there. He's showing us many signs and wonders. He said, do not be deceived.
Ruby.
Piggyback on what Sister Sherry said, I was watching a program and it's called Amazing Sights in parts of the world that you would never find. And they were having a lot of people taking videos in the skies, and there were literally images coming out, and they were saying, That's Christ, and these are people, and it angered me, and they had like images of angels with wings, and Jean-Luc freaked
How many
out and
faces?
said to me,
How many faces?
one face.
Well, too little.
Right.
Mhm.
But it
Four at
told
least.
us, and Jean-Luc says, Mom, they're saying that this, so I sent him a video of the book of Ezekiel. Says, listen, don't be deceived, because you're not you're out in the world, so you're easy to be influenced. So you need to be careful of what you're watching and who's telling you what, because it's easy to get tricked in if you're not faithful to the Father. If you walked away, you will be deceived, so you have to be careful. It's funny that Sister Sherry said that, because that's exactly what we were viewing and looking at, and just, I had to look at it for myself. I says, no, this is where the mind gets stirred up if we're not standing in his word. Exactly.
I have heard of people that lead people sell their houses and move with me to this part of the country, and we'll go up together. It happened out there in California with that guy out there, the ones that were going to go up with the planet. Yeah. Yep, Hale-Bopp thing. The Hale-Bopp comet. Yeah. And I've heard that stories about a lot of stories like that. But the more unstable the world gets, though, the more people get scared of stuff, and they get overcome by that fear, and that's what this whole thing was about with these viruses and vaccines and all of that. Just gauging how scared you could be made. And it's not over yet.
This is Savannah. I read a book about the long walk home. And reading out there makes me think about that. It's not a long walk home anymore. It might seem long, but only thing you have to look at is what's going on today with the disease, with the war, with the everything that's going on. It's a short journey today. And I have something what gives me peace is knowing that His Holy Spirit resides inside of us, which is leading us to do the right things, to
Yes.
practice every day to do the right things. And it's a love right there, and I thank you so much for continuing.
Thank you for listening.
I'm learning much from it. Yeah, it's not a long walk home.
Last time I blinked, I was in high school. It's not a long walk anyway. We think so because we are so used to getting rushed to everything. And blink again, it's all be over. This part of it anyway. Anything else?